What is up, Posy people? Frank here. You're watching the Super Posy Show, and on today's episode of What the F Did I Just Watch, we're talking about SHIN Godzilla, also known as Godzilla Resurgence if you're from America. I have a lot to say about this movie, and we're going to get into that in just a second, but real quick, we're going to take a brief detour because the newest Rogue One trailer dropped today, and I am very excited to show it to you guys. So if you haven't already seen it, I'm going to link it down below. Definitely check it out. It is super awesome. I am so excited for Rogue One. I could barely contain myself. Hopefully you guys are excited too. Now, back to the matter at hand. I saw Shin Godzilla this past Tuesday on the 11th, the first day of its release in America. I had pretty high hopes going into this movie. Despite all the weird stuff I read about on Reddit between the time that it released in Japan and now, I was kind of concerned about some of the things that they were talking about, like Godzilla shooting lasers out of his back and tail, him transforming throughout the movie, all this weird stuff that's very different from your typical Godzilla. However, all that weirdness aside, I still had high hopes. I was hoping, you know what, this is just a really cool, new, innovative way to look at Godzilla. I'm sure it'll be fine. Unfortunately, I was wrong. Now, I don't like to typically say negative things in general on this channel, specifically about things that I love like Godzilla, but this movie was just straight weird. Like, there's no other way to really put it. Now, a lot of it I will chalk up to differences in culture. I know Japanese culture finds humor in different things. They focus on different things from a cinematic perspective. There was obviously a lot of Japanese politics being talked about and a lot of cultural concepts that as an American I wouldn't really understand, and I get that. I'm willing to look past all that and look past some of the seemingly awkward scenes and just chalk them up to cultural and creative differences. But there were some things in this movie that were just not good. To start, why was one of the characters frequently switching back and forth between speaking English and speaking Japanese? I just didn't understand the premise behind that. She was speaking to Japanese people every single time she said a line, except for one instance, so I just don't understand why she felt the need to speak English to Japanese speakers. That just confused the heck out of me. Secondly, it seems like all the American/English speaking people they got in this movie were like the worst actors in the history of the universe. It was almost unbearable at times to watch these people deliver lines. And you can chalk as much up to bad script writing as you want, but these people straight up, for lack of a better word, sucked at acting. Also, there was a scene where there were a couple people speaking German. Like, seriously, what the f*** was that? I just don't understand the purpose of that scene at all. It just baffles me. Bad acting and arbitrary foreign language use aside, the cinematography was also kind of awkward. There would be scenes that would jump back and forth between different people speaking. It just didn't seem to have a very coherent and fluid flow to it. Someone would be speaking, then it would jump to a completely different scene with someone else speaking, and it wasn't even really related. It's like they just didn't know how to transition scenes from one scene to another. Again, I've seen some anime, and I know that stylistically they do that sometimes, but it just felt kind of awkward and just really hurt the flow of the movie. You can't talk about this movie without talking about the forms of Godzilla. Now, while the final form of Godzilla was absolutely badass and I really liked it, I was even able to dig the whole laser shooting out of all the parts of his body thing. That actually was executed kind of well. But the evolutionary forms of Godzilla leading up to that final form almost made me bust out laughing in the theater. It was so embarrassing. When Godzilla first shows up, he looks like this weird reptilian chicken. It's just ridiculous. You shouldn't be laughing at Godzilla appearing in a Godzilla movie, like, ever. Unless it's one of those really weird 70s movies where they try to make Godzilla funny. But this was not intentionally that movie. At least I don't think so. So they kind of missed the mark there. A lot of Akira Ifukube's tracks that he wrote for the original Godzillas way back in the 50s and 60s are present here. They do some remixing for some of them to make them more modern, but I love the soundtrack. I will say that right now, the soundtrack is awesome. So if you're not going to go see this movie, which I can't honestly recommend wholeheartedly, then at least check out the soundtrack on Spotify because it's really cool. Additionally, like I said, Godzilla, once he gets to his final form, looks really awesome. The action in the movie is really cool. The scenes where Godzilla destroys stuff are also really cool. Easily the most exciting parts of the movie, and Godzilla actually got a surprising amount of screen time, more than I'm used to in a Godzilla movie, so I really like that. In most Godzilla movies, there's a lot of exposition before you really even see Godzilla, and in this movie, they kind of jumped right into it. Granted, going back to what I was saying earlier, he doesn't actually start looking cool till way later in the movie, so it kind of defeats the purpose of showing him off earlier in the movie, but I digress. I don't want to get too much into the plot of the movie because I really don't want to spoil the end, because the ending's actually pretty cool, even though the way they finally defeat Godzilla is pretty lame, if I say so myself. The very end of the movie is really cool, and I don't want to say anything about it because I think that the entire rest of the movie aside, the ending actually makes me want to maybe even see a sequel, which it looks like they're going to make based on the ending. That's all I'm saying. Not telling you anymore. In summary, the movie was really hit and miss for me. There were some things that I liked. There were some things that I really, really didn't like. So honestly, I kind of meet somewhere in the middle. I'd give this movie probably 2.5 to 3 out of 5. There were some things that I liked, so I'm not going to score it really low, but as a Godzilla fan, I was expecting it to be a lot truer to the original, even though I kind of knew going into it that it was going to be kind of different. I just feel ultimately let down. As a Godzilla fan, I'll probably still buy the Blu-ray, but I honestly don't know if I'll watch that Blu-ray more than once. This movie just didn't really sit well with me. I think this movie's worth seeing once, and then you guys can draw your own conclusion, but I don't know if I'm going to see it more than twice in my life. That's just kind of how I feel about it. The cool thing about these reviews, though, is that it's not just about my opinion, it's also about your opinion as well. So if you've seen the movie, feel free to drop a comment down below. Tell me what you think. I want to hear the opinions of people who thought that it was good. If you thought it was bad like me, tell me what you thought was bad about it. I just want to have a better understanding for this movie. I feel kind of bad because I feel like I'm writing this movie off without fully understanding all of the premises behind it. I feel like there's a lot of things that were employed in this movie that just went over my head because I just don't understand the culture and the context that a lot of the elements were pulled from. So this review is a little bit shorter than all my normal ones, but that's all I got for today, guys. Like I said before, leave your comments on the movie if you've seen it down below. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. If you really loved the movie, please feel free to explain anything that I missed, anything that I don't seem to understand. I'm not going to take offense to it. I really just want to give this movie another chance so that way I can give it a better rating than I gave it today. I feel bad, but I just can't in good conscience score it higher. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. I've been playing a lot of Gears of War recently, so if you have an Xbox, feel free to add me on Xbox Live. Until next time, my name is Frank, and as always, stay posy. Bye, guys.